Great. So welcome everyone to Bridging Voices training series on ALS and communication. My name's Karina. I'm the Executive Director of Bridging Voice. And we have our whole team, our whole care team on with us today. So you'll be hearing from all of them: Nahum, Deborah, Annie, Eddie, Trinity, Devora. So I'm excited for you guys to meet the whole team. As I said, this is part of an ongoing training series we have, and our past trainings have gone into detail on a specific topic related to communication. I encourage you to check those out. We have them all on our YouTube channel. And if you are not following us on YouTube, I encourage that. Then you'll get updates anytime we post a new training, and those are really helpful. And this training likewise will be recorded and posted on our YouTube page. But this training is unique because we wanted to hear the questions that you had, and our team is going to be answering questions that you submitted in advance. And then if we have time at the end, we'll take sort of open questions in the chat. So if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to drop those in the chat as well. And then I just wanted to touch base quickly on two initiatives we have. I think most of you are familiar with Bridging Voice. We're a nonprofit. We support PALS with their communication and computer access all across the country. We've been supporting PALS, I think, in 49 states now. But we do have two state initiatives that are unique and where we're able to provide some additional special resources to PALS. Our first one is in New Jersey, and our second one is in Maryland. So if you are a PAL in New Jersey or Maryland, you should check out our dedicated websites. Trinity, you can go to the next slide. I think you can just use, arrow key. There we go. So just check out our state initiatives, newjersey.bridgingvoice.org and maryland.bridgingvoice.org. And we have some additional resources, both for PALs, CALs, as well as practitioners. So if you're based in either of those states, check that out. And then anyone, feel free to reach out to us if you have additional questions, if we can provide you with additional support. You can always reach us at info@bridgingvoice.org. But with that, we're going to dive right into this Q&A because we had some really great questions come in. I want to thank Trinity for organizing and collating everything. And we're going to jump right in.
All right, let's get to our first question here. Oops, sorry. I am having technical difficulties on my end and can't see the whole question.
Do you want me to read it on my end?
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
Okay, great. So the first question we got was, I still have movement in my head and trunk. After I calibrate, it is hard not to shift my head forward or back or side to side when using eye gaze, and that throws everything off for accuracy. So who wants to take this one?
That is Nahum.
So, so I guess although head support is the second thing on the list, I think we should speak about that first. Head support is crucial because it is eye tracking. The more stable someone's head is, the better the eye tracking accuracy will be. And even if that's as simple as leaning back on a recliner or an airplane pillow, something that just gives stability to the head will make a tremendous, tremendous difference. The different vendors do have different devices. Some are more sensitive to head movement, and the ones that are more sensitive are generally more accurate. But there have been instances where a particular device just was too sensitive to a PAL's head movement, and that had to be switched out at a later time because it just didn't work for them. Just important to keep that in mind. But in general, one of the things that we can help with is customizing the device and the software to make the targets larger, and that will allow for more head movement as long as the person is still being seen by the eye tracker, and you won't need as much accuracy to target those buttons. So definitely give us a call if you are experiencing this too often.
All right. Okay. This is another question from Nachum again. What is the proper level and positioning for setting up eye gaze?
So this one is a little bit of a controversial question because some of the vendors will specifically say that the device should be low. Some are more open to it being higher. We find that higher is usually better, but it really depends on a lot of factors. The main reason why we find that higher is better is because a person's eyes will be more open the higher they look. When someone is looking down, their eyes automatically close a little bit. So if someone has like a borderline ptosis where they have a droopy eyelid, so if they look down, they will start covering part of their pupils. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Glasses and the NIV mask also will sometimes get in the way. If a person is looking too low, they may actually be looking through the frames of their glasses, and they may be looking through the NIV mask, especially if an NIV mask is the straps are pushing up on their cheeks, making it that the bottom of their eye is a little closed to begin with. That could really exacerbate the problem. But the main thing is always just to keep in mind, no obstruction between the person's eyes and the eye tracking device. So if someone's wearing glasses that by looking higher, they'll be looking through the frames, that will also create an issue. So we find higher is better, but we're open to hearing about a low position device too.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's see, next question. This one is for me. Can you use eye gaze with switches? So I absolutely love eye gaze with switches. So the answer is a resounding yes. One of the best reasons that I love eye gaze with switching is I have found that it can significantly decrease the learning curve. So when someone is starting to learn eye gaze, there's this funny period where we are trying to create a balance between not asking someone to stare at a target for too long, but then also getting them enough time to read what's on the screen as well as look around what's on the screen. So we have found that eye fatigue can happen very significantly because your eyes are drying out. And the reason your eyes are drying out is because you're staring and dwelling for a long period of time. So I absolutely love using a switch with eye gaze as it decreases. So you look at what you want and you click the switch. But the thing to remember is that the switch needs to be easily repeatable and non-fatiguing. We don't want you to do a big motion with your hand. We want you to do as little motion as possible to make sure that it's not fatiguing. And just remember that using a switch is often a means to developing your dwell skills as your ability to select may change. All right, next question. What are some, this one is for Annie. We got a couple of questions kind of centered around this. So hopefully if you ask this question, this will answer what you were looking for. What are some options of text-to-speech apps to make a phone call on a speech-generating device, which is an SGD?
Yes, so this is a big question and one we could probably do an entire presentation on all of the iterations of how to make this happen. So I want to cover two scenarios here. So the first I want to explain is that if a user has a cell phone already and they have a speech generating device. So with this, the cell phone is paired to the speech generating device through Bluetooth. And then any of the standard communication apps on the Windows, so I'm thinking about a speech generating device with Windows, can use, so for example, Grid 3, Mind Express, and Tobii Dynavox TD Pilot, TD Phone on the i13 and i16 will work with iPhone or Android. On the Tobii Dynavox Communicator 5 communication software, you can use Android only. A unique solution that's only for Android phones on Windows speech generating devices is Phone Link. So you could use Phone Link or mirroring and to control your phone and then use your communication software to participate in the call. And so that's kind of a general overview there. Another app, which I'd have to thank Charlie Wren for pointing this out, that's just a Windows app for text to speech, is Next Up Talker, but that doesn't allow you to operate the phone in any way. It just would allow you to participate in the call. The next scenario would be if somebody has a speech generating device but does not have a cell phone to use. So then in that case, they would be using a voice over internet provider with Wi-Fi connection plus their communication software. And some key points about this are, if your speech generating device is an Android phone, is Android based, you would not be able to mix your communication app into the call. They can't share the speaker. But on an iPhone or an iPad or a Windows device, you can mix the audio from your speech generating program and your voice over internet provider. And those are also unique to either Android or iOS or Windows, and there are some listed here. So the person who asked this question said it's clunky, and it is in this scenario. I wish I had a better, smoother answer, but this is, I think, the state of it there. So thank you.
Oh, I forgot I was muted. Too many things at once. All right. Okay. I have an iPad and Predictable, but I'm still finding it hard to talk on the phone. Deborah.
Okay. Hi, guys. So Predictable is a really wonderful app with lots of capability of customization. And so to use it with a phone call to make it easier, we can one can customize the app to create specific categories of telephone phrases. So this could be greetings, specific questions, comments to keep the conversation going. Then those comments can also be interspersed with creating novel messages with the keyboard. You can also create specific categories for friends or families, and then you can add phrases in specifically for certain people or certain types of conversation. So those come really in handy to make that the reaction with the phone conversation much quicker. The floor hold feature in Predictable is really useful to make sure that people know that you're typing. So if someone starts talking over you, you click that floor hold and you can create different messages in that floor hold to maintain your, that you're continuing to create a message. And then also there's for quick comments, you can also use abbreviation expansion to store very common phrases like HHH for hi, how are you? Or, ILY for I love you, so that you only have to, create a couple of phrases and the message can come out quickly.
Thank you very much.
That's my answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Nahum, this one's for you. What can I do when the screen freezes? There is no place to exit and rebooting does not help.
Okay. Now, of course, this is an impossible question to answer because it would take like hours to go through every reason why a Windows device can freeze. But I think one of the things that I just put into the answer here was that the first thing is to really make sure that you're rebooting, because rebooting takes care of so many issues. It installs updates, it just freshens up the machine. And especially with the current eye tracking devices, many of them, when you press the power switch, it just actually puts it to sleep. And when you put it back on, it just comes back to the same place it was before. So you really didn't reboot it. So the first thing is to make sure that you actually reboot the device. On most of them, you may be forced to just hold the power button down for 10 to 15 seconds, and that will actually put it off. And then when you press the power button again, it will reboot. That's the first important thing. Secondly, it's important to make sure that you don't have a lot of programs or windows open at the same time, because that can always cause freezing. making sure that your windows and software are updated is important, especially to make sure that you don't have Windows updates that are installed and they're just waiting for a restart of Windows. That's like a very common place where eye trackers can freeze up. Another thing, by the way, just since it's happened 3 times in the last week, good to mention that always check the time of your computer. Eye trackers despise having the wrong time in the computer. If there's any, you just take a quick look and then do a fix it and reboot can help a lot. But of course, if you're stuck, calling tech support of the company, the vendor of the device, or Bridging Voice will be more than willing to go and really research that freezing.
Perfect. Thank you, Nachum. And please know we could talk forever on each one of these these topics. So if you have further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us so we can help you address your specific needs. All right. Nachum, what do I do when I get a pop-up on my screen that I can't access?
Now, so this question that was asked, I'm making an assumption it's because of a very recent occurrence that's been happening on one of the vendor's devices, where there's like a person gets a message, a pop-up that says something about, do you want to go home? And then the machine is frozen on them. There is an issue going on with one of the devices right now. It's a software glitch, and it is something that you should contact us about, and we can fix it very easily. We can't make sure that it stays fixed, but we can show you how to alter something to keep it fixed for for yourself.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, Annie, this one is yours, and I can't read the top line. So do you mind reading the question yourself?
No problem. Yeah. So the question is, when using WhatsApp and TD Snap on Tobii i12, the receiving side hears all the sounds from the sending Tobii side except the voice from Snap. Do you have any idea how to solve this issue? And so the way to resolve this issue is to enable stereo mix, and then be sure that WhatsApp is using stereo mix for their microphone. So the steps are listed below, are specifically on an i12. They look a little bit different on other devices, but for all devices and for everyone, I will say, please use caution with this because it can change the way that your output, your audio is received in other programs. So I would just caution that you check with all the platforms that you use your device on, and that your audio is okay after changing this setting.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Eddie, this one is yours. Would you mind reading the question since it's hidden for me?
Sure. When people do not struggle with access, what keeps them from using their technology to stay engaged and communicate? More importantly, what can be done to clear this hurdle? So I'm again making some assumptions that the issue that's being described here is not the body, the physiology, not the abilities, the physical abilities, but the attitude toward using the device. And I would just call that user motivation. And we have found that user motivation is one of the 2 major non-technical issues that prevent someone from using an eye tracking or any kind of communication device. So in the non-technical realm, if the user is not motivated, or they don't have good caregiver support, the uphill climb to use a device is high. I want to add that that sometimes you can have someone who's motivated to do an activity, but not so much to communicate. And in other words, I might say that activity is communicating. So driving your wheelchair away communicates that you don't want to be where you want to be. Turning the volume on the television louder would be a way of saying, that's what I want to listen to now, and not the conversation you'd like me to have. So, so sometimes communication is not the place to start, but rather doing activities. And some of those activities might fall into these categories, games. So, and they're of different complexity. So Candy Crush would be an online game with lots of choices and targets needing good accuracy. On the other end of the spectrum, Bridging Voice made a hangman game, which is large target built right into Communicator. Between the two, the New York Times Wordle page has an on-screen keyboard right underneath Wordle that you all type in, you tap on, well, you can eye gaze right onto those letters. So reading news or books that might be online, or it might be something like through Kindle, controlling your TV volume, streaming, or online browser-based or browser-looking devices, not the TV on the wall, but your computer itself playing videos on YouTube. I worked with one client just working on scrolling through their Google Photos. They had many albums and they got tremendous pleasure from the growing photo albums on their system.
All right, and this is a question that is to be continued. So there's one more slide to address this.
Right. So again, addressing the motivation issue, we should recognize that people with who are unable to independently do what they used to be able to do may feel badly, they feel guilty about constantly asking for assistance. It's not the role that they're used to, and so that may cause what appears to be a lack of motivation or engagement, simply not wanting to be in that role. And giving a user some independent activity can turn that around somewhat. So if you can control the television rather than communicating that you need the television volume or channel changed, it can be a game changer. Also, open communication, giving someone a keyboard and say, talk, can be overwhelming, right? To concentrate, to focus, to type messages for someone who's used to, for instance, talking. And so we can build structured communication where you might be asking about specific people that are in a list and you want to know, hey, what's going on with them? Or maybe they could visit, or it would be great to get some photos from them, or can you take me to their Facebook page? So that's a much more structured kind of questioning than just putting an open keyboard. We do all kinds of customizations, and we'll train the PALs, the caregivers, how to use and expand these kind of options.
Wonderful, thank you. All right. So what are some interesting environmental controls? Did I guess correctly? I can't see it. All right. So let's talk about some other things that you can do with the communication device, which is called environmental controls, which are things that you can control in your environment. Those things include things like blinds, lights, and fans. You can communicate with Alexa, and I apologize because this is going to cause a lot of people's different systems to go off. So let me just say that ahead of time. So Alexa, Google Home, Apple HomePod, and SmartPod. Also toys like bubble machines, Nerf dart guns. Of course, music you can control, television, remotes, satellites. Very important, nurse call bells, or some other people call them like wireless call attendants. And then there are two other ones too that are kind of advanced that we don't do within us. We actually refer to other people. Those include being able to control your bed or power recliner. And then lastly, being able to control your wheelchair positioning or wheelchair driving. But again, those two we don't do. Just a couple, but there's a lot of fun things out there that you can control.
So back to me, I think. What is the best way to organize the phrases that I use the most? So this is probably the second or third thing that I like to train users on when they're just starting out. learning to type and talk. Is how do you speed things up? How do you bring back phrases that you use a lot? And so generally the fastest way to restore a stored phrase, including the messages that you may have banked earlier, is using the keyboard phrase prediction. Now, we're all familiar with word prediction from our phones. You start typing a word and the word gets completed in a choice list. We're less familiar with phrase prediction, but we're seeing this more and more. As you're typing in an email, Gmail will try to predict, what sentence you're going to write. If you're doing a Google search, you might just put in the first word and it's going to give you an entire phrase. This is the notion of phrase prediction. And so if you are good on a keyboard, and which means you have some good accuracy and you spell okay, and you can remember your phrases that you want, you can go after your phrases, or you can force the prediction to come up with the phrases you have used by using phrase prediction. So if you often say, please adjust my pillow, you can you should be able to just start typing the word pillow and PI, and you'll get the predicted phrase that includes, please adjust my pillow, right? I specifically said, don't start with please, because many messages might start with please, but pillow is a little bit more unique, more like a keyword that will target your preferred phrase. When someone doesn't have the spelling or the accuracy or the memory, then we usually go to a category item structure. So I think Deborah was mentioning this before. For a phone call, you might have prepared categories and items in those categories. And so that might be on a single page, or it might be a series of multiple pages. Is there another slide here? Or right. So, and again, so some of those categories may be needs, body parts, people, pain, emergencies. Those might be categories, and it might be categories like activities, go outside, go to the store, open the environmental, make it warmer in here. I need a blanket, etc. So pre-prepared category item lists.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, Annie. I just finished voice and message banking. I still have my voice, as in I can still talk. What's next?
This is a great question. And so what we would recommend is that you be sure that you listen to your voice and that you're happy with how it sounds. Because if there are other services out there that you can explore if you're not happy with what you've received. Another strategy to be proactive then is to take your messages that you've banked in addition to your voice banking. Sorry. So you'll take your personal messages and you can add them to mymessagebanking.com, and you can start to sort them by category so that they are easier to find if you should need to use them later. Additionally, you want to continue to keep using those strategies to optimize your speech. So maybe a voice amplifier might be helpful for you, some over articulation or pacing yourself in conversation. So don't forget to adopt those strategies if needed. And then keep in mind that when you are ready to choose a communication app or software, you want to ensure that it is compatible with your voice banking and message banking files.
Perfect. Thank you, Annie. All right. So I basically concluded that I need to use Apple products to work with voice banked on Acapella. Really? Are there any portable PC or Google devices that also work with Acapella? This one's for you again.
I love this question too. So just to clarify, that Acapella does work on Android, PC, and Apple. The process looks a little bit different though. So on an Apple device like an iPad or an iPhone, the applications that are compatible, what you would do is you would log into the application, or I'm sorry, you would download the application and then within the application, log into your Acapella account, and that will let you access the voice On a Windows tablet or an Android tablet, what you do is download the Acapella software to the tablet and install it that way, and then you will be able to access it within your communication software.
Thank you. All right. What are the best resources that clinicians can use in the acute care setting? Deborah, this one's for you.
So being in an acute care setting with ALS and physical challenges and speech challenges can be really isolating and scary. So it's real important to think about all of these things that are listed here. One is really establishing, most important thing in my mind is if someone isn't communicating, establishing that yes-no response, both yes and a no response, and making sure that the hospital staff are aware of it, and doing some education about that. Accessible call bells, it's folks need to call in all types of situations and typically can't access the call bells that are available. So there are switches that can be plugged into the present call bell system, and you can potentially talk to the engineering team in the hospital to see what switches would be best, what can work with that call bell system. And there's occupational therapists could potentially help identify, different switches that the patient can use. And we use a switch a lot. I've used it in my whole career. It's a tent switch that can easily just be clipped onto the pillow of a bed. And with a certain jack, you plug it into the call bell system, and then the person can access, the call bell easily. So manual communication boards, even if someone has a more sophisticated system, are really, really important. And if they're available, if the speech pathologist has different systems available, she can show you, or he can show you an eTran or an iLink. And we now have some bridging voice manual scan boards that you can access very easily online. We'll be able to send them to you, or you can contact us and we'll send them to you as an email. Trinity's holding it up. And in that board, we have a QR code actually with an instructional video that, care staff who don't necessarily know how to use a manual scan board, a partner manual scan board, will be able to learn how to use it very easily. So we're very excited about that manual board that we're providing. Sometimes, people come into the hospital with their present technology and, just showing them access to apps that they can use to help communicate. With those manual boards, also light text systems like laser pointers, simple things, and mounts to hold the boards for them, or mounts to hold the iPad onto the bed rail, or the iPhone or the Android phone. I'm not being biased really here, onto the bed rail so that people can access them easily. And then think about if someone needs something more sophisticated than that, there are loan closets, right? So if someone's in a nursing facility or in acute care, you have to get equipment more quickly, potentially. There are loan closets out there, different ALS associations and the Gleason Foundation. So people can reach out to us or to their local association and try to get, equipment, the device and amount that can accommodate to the person with whatever the position they're in their bed or what have you. And really one of the most important things is care team training, and so usually we try to identify one person on the care team that's going to kind of oversee the whole process. So, if there's lots of questions and someone can do lots of education to the team. So it's really important to have the team trained on how everyone on the care team, from the housekeeping staff to the physicians, and how the client is communicating, and making sure that everyone understands how an individual is communicating and what they need to be able to get their basic needs across and to have conversations.
Thank you. All right. All right, Annie, I can't read the top line. This one's for you. You go ahead and read your question.
How many devices need to be trialed by Maryland residents before they can be approved for a device by insurance? Each state has different rules. And so it is best practice to at least test out 3 different devices. So while that's not required by insurance, that's definitely what we would recommend and advocate for. Every device is different. It works different with everybody. So you want to make sure that it's easily accessible for you and has the features that matter most to you. in Medicare does not require a full trial, so like not a trial for a certain amount of days. Maryland Medicaid also does not require a trial, a certain number of devices or a certain number of days of trial, but every state is different with their Medicaid rules, and every private insurance is different as well. Across the board, insurance does typically require a rule out of lower cost communication systems or access methods. So why does somebody need eye gaze rather than using a switch to access their device or a head mouse? So that's a constant across insurance. But to check your specific benefits related to your insurance, usually the speech generating device vendor companies can assist with that, and families or clients can always call their insurance and ask what their specific rules are.
Thank you. All right. What types of communication devices are affordable? I think this one was mine, right, team? Yes, okay. All right.
Okay, yes.
So, yeah. So the most important thing that I want to make sure that people understand is that insurance funding is available in certain situations. We know when somebody, for example, is in an acute care facility, insurance funding is not available, or if somebody is on hospice. But make sure you're looking at other options such as grants, loan closets, and state initiatives. And we were just discussing state initiatives, and we know that California, Texas, Oregon, do we find any more?
Montana.
And Montana all have state initiatives to either help with funding or have loan closets or funding within the state. Also, there are used products online, such as eBay, but please make sure that you are knowledgeable enough about the equipment before you go purchasing it to make sure you're getting what you actually want. For example, you know, a communication device may say communication device, but it may not always have an eye tracker attached to it. So you need to make sure, if you need an eye tracker, that you know enough about it to do it. Also, light tech boards. Light tech boards cost nothing other than the printer ink and the printer paper, or somebody handing you one. And when we talk about light tech boards, we're talking about manual communication boards, like Deborah had mentioned earlier. There's also phone and tablet have apps. And then also speech generating devices as well. But then please remember again that these have that there are insurance funding and loan closets and grants available. Deborah, I'm sorry I stole your question.
You stole my question.
Sorry. We're so excited to answer these questions. Deborah, I stole your question. I'm so sorry. All right. Okay, that was our last one. All right, so next step. So we have upcoming training. So please consider signing up for our future trainings. I'll drop the link here in just a second. I'm also going to drop the certificate of attendance link as well, the attestation. But we still have at least 20 more minutes. So I'd love to, I'm going to go ahead and stop our screen share so everybody can see everybody. And I'd love to be able to answer some more questions for you. There were some that came in. While we were talking, and I'll go ahead and share those. So I'm going to stop our share. And now we can see everyone. So please feel free to take yourself off of mute if you have a question that you want to ask, or put it into the chat. Let me go ahead and start with a couple of the questions that have come in, and team members, you guys can choose which one. Also, participants, if any of you have any information that you want to add, like, do you know if your state has an initiative? Like, share, like, please feel free to share with us all, you know, if you have any insights to answering these. Okay, so there was a question that came in that said, is there any way to adjust the screen pressure sensitivity when using a stylus on a i13? Nachum,
I don't think so. But I've never tried. So
I've never seen a setting that would allow you to adjust the pressure for, for touching the screen on an iSeries device. Annie, any ideas, Deborah? No? Okay.
It could be the stylus and the way you're holding it, and maybe a different way of holding the stylus if you have some physical challenges. That would be the only thing I would think of.
Right, and some styli have a little give to them, have a little springiness. Some of them are very solid, so that again, reducing the amount of give, or so that it would be more rigid.
Okay. All right. Nachum was kind of answering this question, and I thought that his response was awesome, so I wanted to make sure that everybody got to see it. So the question was, what is the easiest way to search the web? Is it TD Browse? Nachum.
So, well, so there's, I think because there was something more in that question, but TD Browse is a very rudimentary way of browsing. It's working, it's like sort of like an easy method to get things started. But a lot of people want a more powerful browser. And there are different ways of setting up the device to allow someone to browse more easily and quickly. It includes a lot of customization, both to the browser and to whatever communication software you're using. But we've been extremely successful in helping folks who have very low accuracy be able to use their browser very well without fatiguing and without having to try things 5 times in a row.
I would add also that there are 2 parts to browsing, at least 2 parts. There's the mouse click and there's the keyboarding element. And in most systems, I would say there is good adaptation for mouse clicking, for instance, zooming or readjusting the target. Often the browser keyboard that is presented is too small. It's a half screen or a third of the screen. It makes it very challenging for proper typing. So that there can be, Nachum was mentioning that even with lower accuracy, or larger keyboards is another option as well. Sometimes the browser keyboard that is provided with the eye tracker technology is not the right one for the user.
So reach out to us. We have lots of customization options. Okay. Nachum, another question that you were kind of answering was how to address sunlight affecting somebody's use of eye gaze.
Right. So yeah, someone was asking that they don't want to shut the blinds, but it adversely affects their eye tracking. So what should they do? So, and I actually asked, and they have an i13, which is one of the better eye trackers for working in sunlight. And I actually just worked with someone yesterday who uses their device outside all the time, every day. It is actually an i13. And I said, how do you do that? So they said, oh, we know exactly what position to put it in, where the sun should be, where the glare is. They gave me a whole long speech, and I asked them to write it up, and they are very willing to do that. So I hope we'll be able to have a document, because even on some of the Facebook pages, some of those groups, this is a very big issue, because it works maybe 50–60% of the time in sunlight, but the rest of the time it doesn't. So I hope we're going to get some good information on this soon.
Another add-on from me, the last i13 user who was trying for outdoor use that I was working with found that sunlight streaming from behind the Tobii was less of an interference than sunlight coming over your shoulder behind you. That the sunlight coming from behind you was somehow more interfering. So if you can switch yourself around 180 degrees, keep the blinds open, but put the sun behind the Tobii, or the sunlight behind the Tobii, you might have better outcome. We'd like to hear more.
And I know here in Oregon, quite a few people have a hard time when they're underneath a tree and the light is filtering through the tree and the shadows are moving back and forth as the tree is moving around, that can be challenging. So I've had some of my pals get a golf umbrella, which happens to be a little bit bigger, and like attach it to the wheelchair just so that it gives them that stability of light, and then they can kind of start playing around with what positioning is best. All right, so Kim had a question. For the earlier general question on text to speech for a phone, I didn't see predictable on the list. Wondering if predictable is the best option for my pals. Deborah, Annie.
Go ahead, Annie. You had the list.
Predictable can be a good option on the, it will integrate on the iPhone to allow you to use the app over the iPhone or iPad while on a phone call or Zoom or FaceTime.
Also on Android,
Well, it doesn't let you integrate into the phone on Android.
Oh,
You can
not
use it.
integrate
Yeah,
into
you
the
can
phone, right.
definitely use predictable on Android for, but then you would maybe put your house phone on speaker and type on your Android phone for a phone call. There are a variety of apps that work over the phone on iPhone, and then also that can different phones that can go, I'm sorry, different apps that can go on Android. And we would be happy to meet with you to talk through different features of those apps to find out what might be best for you and what you need.
All right. Two great questions came in. I'm going to grab this one, the newest one first, and then we'll go back to the question about playing games. Will an iPhone set to voice control understand commands sent from an i13?
I have a lot of experience with this one. Yes, the answer is yes. Proximity is important, so you want to be able to put the iPhone near the speaker of the voice synthesizer coming out of the system. You can also record the basic 10 commands and maybe the top 20 numbers. You can have someone physically, in other words, verbally record those numbers so you can get a human voice producing that. So often you'd want to mount the phone and the device in close proximity to each other, especially because you do need to see the phone. So dual mounting would be a smart idea in this situation.
Awesome. All right. And then Angela had the question about how to access games to play. So Karina dropped a link in there. We have a couple of games that you can play, bridgingvoice.org/board. So our free games there. And then also there are some other options too. I wasn't sure if the question was about like higher level gaming. Like, for example, are you wanting to do something like with like Microsoft, or are you wanting to do, no, just some small games? Okay, I see the head shaking yes. Okay, perfect. Because there are some other options in case anybody else has questions about gaming. There are some other really great, wonderful nonprofits that will help work with you on gaming, like actually setting up some gaming. There's also some gaming available through the, is it the Xbox or Microsoft? What is it? The Xbox, Nahum?
Well, that's for external gaming, right? Right, for using an Xbox. There's a whole thing there. There's the eye gaze. What was the question? What was the question exactly? Just so that we can.
The question was how to access games to play.
So if it's simple games, let's say board games and things that you want to play on the computer. So there is a website, eyegazegames.com, that has like a bunch of very standard games there. It's eye tracking accessible, very easy to use, very easy to set up. Using other games through a browser is another option. Sometimes a person needs some customizations in order to make that work. And if it's like Trinity is referring to some external gaming, there is this new thing, the Praetorian, very, very great piece of equipment to allow you to control games from any software, any SGD software to control an Xbox. There's actually a new piece to TD Control to allow for very high level gaming using overlays. Very, very cool technology. You got to check it out on the Facebook pages to see how it works, but that allows to, for really high level gaming. So there's a lot of answers to that question. So.
And because I can never spell the word Praetorian, I just dropped a link for you guys in there if that was something that you wanted to look up. Yes, the speciologist who can't spell. So there it is. So feel free. Again, even if it's not, a lot of times I've had some people use this, for example, playing Scrabble online with family that are in other places as a way, or, it doesn't have to be just like, action games. It can be, pretty much, there's lots of different card games as well as, some other games that especially that you can do with grandkids or with other family members.
And Ashley Loining added in something very important also, that there's, using your mirrored, either using a mirrored phone or BlueStacks to emulate a phone gives another bunch of options to getting to games that are only available on phones, which is a lot of people like to play, some of these team games. So.
And thank you, Ashley. So the nonprofit that I referred to that can help people with gaming, in case you were getting really serious about it, is Able Gamers. That was the message from Ashley, was Able Gamers. Charlie shared that there are a few games on Steam that you can play. They aren't eye gaze, but they are playable. So on Steam as another one. I love all of these questions. Okay, we have just about 6 minutes left. Anybody else have any pressing questions? You're welcome to take yourself off mute and just ask a question too, if you'd like. If you guys need help with anything else, this is your chance. You get all of us at one shot. You can ask anything about communication.
Oh, that's dangerous.
How can we get a copy of the slides?
Oh, great question. So at the very end of this, what we'll do is I actually will create let me say this, within a week or so, I will actually send out an email that has a link to our YouTube channel that has all of our videos. If there were specific slides that you're wanting, please feel free to reach out to me. I will drop my email in the chat, and you are welcome to ask me, and I'm happy to send some over to you. It's Trinity.
But the recorded video of this training, which has the visuals of all the slides, will go up on our YouTube channel within a week or two.
Mm-hmm. And you'll get an email with a link.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I have a question from Jerome.
Oh, that sounds like Verlinda.
It is.
How are you doing? Okay.
I'm doing fine. When Jerome gets into Zoom, he types in his password when he's getting onto a Zoom, but it does not populate when he tries to put the password in. And he was wondering, is there any way that, or something that he can do to remedy that?
I will set up a session with you and make that happen for you, okay?
Okay.
And
I'll
I'm
reach out and get that fixed
taking
for
a
you, Jerome.
guess.
Okay.
Just taking a guess. This sounds like something that might happen in the join-in browser. I don't know if this is accessible apps.
Yes.
And that is that the control strips in the join-in browser for those people who use it, or the join-in application for Zoom, does not like you to touch the screen. Anybody to help you touch the screen. You need to operate through the strips really 100% in order to get the full effect. So that, I'm just taking a guess, but it might be the accessible app, and it might be a wonderful, over-helpful caregiver in this situation, where the text isn't going into the right field. So, but Trinity's gonna do it.
Okay. All right. That sounds good.
It's good to hear from both of you. Anybody else with questions?
And that's just a great reminder for everyone on the call. If you have follow-up questions or some of the things we touched on you want specific help with, our team is more than happy to do that. If you're already in touch with them, you can just reach out to them and schedule a session. And if you're not, you can always just email us at info@bridgingvoice.org, and we will set up a session to help you with your specific issue, and they can help you hands-on. So always feel free to do that.
Okay, I dropped 3 links in the chat. First one is sign up for future trainings. We'd love to see you guys here again. Second one is certificate of attendance for professionals that would like a certificate of attendance. Please go ahead and complete the attestation. And then lastly, if you guys have any questions about the certificate of attendance, or if you need any follow-up information in terms of the actual slides or anything like that, I've also included my link.
Trinity, drop those one more time. I think they went to someone specific and not to everyone.
Well, it's helpful when you hit enter.
And it just came through. Great.
If you hit enter, that's what's really helpful.
Teamwork.